Okay, so here we are. We're now moving into the second game turn of this scenario. It's actually game turn 22nd, first week in April 1941, and we've got a full month of April to play. So we'll be playing the full scenario set of phases as we're starting for the first turn of the month, which is a more complex one. And we'll crack on with that, and you can get a sight of how a complete game turn plays. Okay, so if you've watched previous videos, you'll know that the game turn starts with a whole lot of air phases. So firstly, before we do that, we move on and we have to determine initiative for this game turn in April 41. All right, so as with the last game turn, the Axis player gets +6 to this roll, the Allies get a +4. So we have a 2 for the Allies, so that gets up to a +3 rather, so that goes up to 5, and the Axis get +6, so they go up to 11, so Rommel again has initiative in April 41. Okay, so the focus of air activity this turn is going to be Benghazi. So the Allies have allocated a Hurricane Squadron to fly combat air patrol over the 9th Australian at Benghazi, and otherwise are refitting or transferring their planes back towards Tobruk. For the Germans, 2 squadrons of SM-79 Soviet Macheta, the humpback Italian bombers, are raiding Malta, along with 3 squadrons of Ju-88s escorted by a bunch of Italian G-90s, and the Bf-110s that struck so effectively against the 2nd Armoured are flying north and raiding Benghazi and attacking the 9th Australian, escorted by a bunch of CR-42s again. Let's see how they do as we move through the plan. So unfortunately for the Germans, we rolled on the commitment of air forces to suppress Malta this term, and despite the intent to make loads of aircraft available, the High Command has only allocated 10% of the bomber force. That's less, that's only 2 SM-79s and a couple of Ju-88s. Given how tiny that bomber force is, we'll abort that raid. No strikes against Malta this turn. We'll see how the aircraft flying out of Malta can do in suppressing German convoys later in this phase. Needless to say, there's a table, so we consult the table and see how effective we have been. We've launched 5 Sunderlands to do the reconnaissance of this, so we have a 43 chance of identifying the convoy, so we need to roll less than 43 on 2 6-sided dice. We've rolled a 1 and a 4, so that's a 14. So we have indeed exceeded the target number, and we have found the convoy. And it's a 7,000-ton convoy heading towards Tripoli. Okay, so we've got a 7,000-ton convoy on its way to Tripoli that's been found by the Sunderlands. It's carrying 2,800 tons of fuel, 500 tons of stores, 500 tons of ammo, and no less than 50 transport points of medium trucks and 5 units of infantry replacements. So let's see how they do. First, they've got to do anti-aircraft fire against the attacking Allied forces. No combat air patrol over the convoy, so we roll on the anti-aircraft table. We roll once for the escorting Hurricanes, and then once for the attacking bomber groups, the Sunderlands and the Wellingtons. So I think you get 1 flak point for each 1,000 tons of convoy, so we've got 7 flak points. So let's see how we do. We roll a 46, so that is 2 planes are forced to abort, and then 4 planes destroyed. Looks like we get to roll again. Or do you just roll once? We probably just roll once. I'll roll again, see if I get any destroyed. We get a 56. I will check whether you roll twice. Because, no, actually on a 56 we didn't destroy any planes at all. So 2 planes are aborted, so 1 Sunderland and 1 Swordfish are driven off by the anti-aircraft fire. We then move on and do the combat attacks as we get bombing runs and torpedo runs by the Wellingtons and the Swordfish against that German convoy. So we've got 260 points or tons of bombs dropped by the Wellingtons, and 72 points of torpedoes launched by the Swordfish. Let's roll for the effect on the Axis naval convoy. So how many torpedo points? As I said, we had 62, so we're in the 51 to 80 column, and we roll a 25, so we cause 5% losses. So that'll be part of the damage to the convoy, and then we do the bombing run. 270 points on the bombing run. Wow, that's a good dice roll. That was a 64, so 64 on this column is one of the highest, 30%. So 35% losses, so nearly a third of the convoy, just over a third of the German convoy knocked out, and all those losses are applied proportionately to those trucks, to those infantry, and those tonnages of various different types of supply that were coming across the Mediterranean to Tripoli. We'll go and deduct those from the convoy. Right, next in the expenditure, it's a spreadsheet job, so I'll do that a little bit later on. We have to expend all stores that are required for the turn, and deduct that from our allocations to our units. Then we move on with the first operation stage in this turn in April 41. All right, so first op stage, German forces have initiative. There's normal weather, so warm and hot, cold at night, all present all the way over the map. So we've done weather, and then there's an organisation phase, so we can distribute water, we can reorganise. No one is short of supplies or stores, so there's no attrition segment this turn. We have completely emptied the Italian and German supply dumps of stores as opposed to water, fuel or ammo, but with those 4 Italian foot divisions. They are still fully supplied, but they consumed everything as they went through. They're dependent on capturing Benghazi, or they're going to start suffering attrition. Ariete and Fifth Light are also fully supplied. All right, we're not going to do any construction or training or supply distribution. Tactical shipping, we will undertake some tactical shipping, and our convoys will arrive. Okay, so we've done initiative declaration, so the Axis have initiative. We've done weather, as I said, that is normal. We've done water distribution as required. We have done no reorganisation and no attrition, as we had sufficient stores, but as we said, all German stores have been exhausted, and we had to pull down some stores for one of our truck convoys that was with one of our Italian divisions. Our naval convoys have arrived. No construction underway by the Axis, no training underway, and tactical shipping, given how short we are on stores. A 1,000-ton convoy of stores is being dispatched from Tripoli, which actually exhausts all of Tripoli's store supplies, and that is on its way up the coast again towards Benghazi. So the Germans are pretty dependent on opening up Benghazi if they're going to get their stores flowing to their units, and they're not going to come to a temporary halt. Convoy has arrived. The 4 infantry replacements were allocated to the 60th Sabratha Infantry Division, which is sitting as a shell in Tripoli, and the trucks were again also allocated to that unit to start to allow it to move forward in due course. And the stores that were on that convoy have flowed into Tripoli's depots. So that's naval convoy done. So then it is land support before we do movement and combat. So all planes fueled may be assigned missions. So we have assigned our German forces missions, as we talked about earlier. We did that at the same time as a strategic mission assignment, because I'm in the same spreadsheet, so do it all at once. And we can undertake our bombing raids into Benghazi. So that'll be the turn starting at the tactical level, and I'll come back with the next shots as we do those raids on Benghazi, see if the Germans can achieve the same success as they did with their raids on Mersa Brega. Okay, so we've got the raids going in here. 2 squadrons of BF 110s escorted by CR-42s, attacking both of the Australian brigades. A squadron of Hurricanes have gone up in defence. The CR-42's done much better this time. They managed to knock one of the attacking Hurricanes down in return for only one loss two of the attacking BF 110 squadrons failed to bring any down, and we have managed to pin two infantry battalions of both Australian brigades there. So that's pinning them in place, so they can't voluntarily move or attack, but they would be able to retreat before combat if the Germans come up on them. All right, that's the end of the air combat for this turn. Okay, we're starting our Axis movement. The reconnaissance battalion of the 5th Light Division is sweeping inland from Agadabia through to Massus with the intent of coming up towards Machili and approaching these air strips up here to try and capture them for the Axis. And then the Ariete has started moving up the coast road. It's used up 17 CP of movement so far and is having a go at catching the supply dump at Magram. There'll be an emergency supply dump demolition attempt by the Allies now. Okay, so we got up to combat on this turn. The Ariete Armoured Division is attacking Benghazi, trying to break in there with a couple of those units suppressed and with a view potentially to then assaulting the other Australian brigade. We'll have to see whether the Australians react to this. Whereas further south, the 5th Light has moved off the road with a view to following its reconnaissance battalion to Massus here, potentially Machili, and to cut off those Australians before they can retreat to Tobruk. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we're simply moving one of our Italian infantry divisions forward. I think that's all we can sustain with our logistics. We'll see how that goes this turn. Used up a fair amount of fuel going across the village, but going across the desert with the 5th Light. But all going well for the Germans so far, and we'll come back later after I've had a break, as I say, to do the attack of the Ariete against Benghazi. Okay, so now a chance for the Australians to sort out this mess here. Both these brigades pushed back one hex by successive attacks by the Ariete Armoured Division. We need to get them out of there and back to Tobruk. Let's see how we do as we move into the first op stage for the Australians. Alright, so just to recap what happened here. So the Ariete came charging up the road to Benghazi. I wanted to bring the 5th Light up in support, but as you can see there's that pale green line running from the edge close to Benghazi up to the escarpment. That's a wadi, and the 5th Light weren't able to get across that, didn't have enough movement and caused too much breakdowns. So the Ariete attacked on its own, and the 5th Light decided to do a hook across the desert. And as a result, the Ariete attacked Benghazi. The 25-pounders and the 6-pounders got some pretty heavy losses in the Ariete. 5 strength points of armour, so about 30 tanks were destroyed, mainly M13 40s, or 41s is it, and a couple of CV-33s. But the attack went in and the Australians have been pushed out of Tobruk. The Ariete, although I haven't moved it on the map, then swung one hex to the right and attacked the airfield and also pushed the Australians away from the airfield. Australians suffered about 30% losses and are retreating. We're now in the Australian turn, and the Australians, because they've used up so much ammunition in that defence, a bunch of their trucks are empty, so they can use 2 CP to fill those trucks up with infantry, and they're going to try and leg it out of there with a now motorised element of movement. The SGSU, so the Squadron's Ground Support Unit from the position, will also fall back, and those truck convoys will pull back with them. Right, let's go and do their movement as they try and head towards. Okay, so here we are. Here's Benghazi, and the Australians have fallen back. We've got the 20th Australian Brigade just past, where are we here? El Gharib. So they reached the village of El Gharib, and up here we're approaching Derna with the 24th Australian Brigade. Both of those are now motorised. And I guess the fear is they will still potentially be caught by the Ariete coming up the main road, although the 5th Light looks more challenging to cut them off as it's got to go all the way across the desert here. The various different squadrons have relocated to El Adam. So we've got 6 squadrons now of RAF based down there, and we've also pulled back a bunch of our truck convoys. For the Allies, bad news is we're giving up all of these airfields and these supply dumps. Our units are fleeing so fast, none of them have got any capability points to spare to try and blow the supply dump. So they'll be undoubtedly captured by the Axis as they move forward this turn. But all favourably for the Allies, all of the ground support for the Axis is still at El Agir down here, and they will now be out of range. So those German squadron ground support units will also have to move forward so they can relocate their air force ready for a potential strike on Tobruk. So now there'll be a race to Tobruk, race for these two Australian brigades to try and extract themselves, for the Ariettes to try and capture them, and the 5th Light potentially to try and cut them off at Gazala or somewhere like that. And then for the Allies, they'll be looking to see what resources and reserves they can race up from Alexandria to try and hold a line around Tobruk. All right, that's the end of the first op stage of this turn for the Allies, and we'll be back with the second op stage as the Germans continue their pursuit.